Three separate foster families returned this 200-pound giant dog to the shelter, believing he was beyond saving and completely broken. But that chilling night, he refused to leave the front of a 5-year-old girl's bedroom. It would show everyone who actually saved whom. When the glare of the headlights first hit him as he wandered aimlessly on a freezing highway near Knoxville, around 3 in the morning, the English Mastiff looked as if he had already lost all hope. His body was as big as a mountain, but he moved almost like a shadow. He had no collar around his neck, no microchip could be found, and not a single person came looking for him. Even the rescue team had begun to think they had exhausted what they could do for him. 3 different foster families had tried to teach him to trust, but each had eventually given up and sent him back. Reggie stayed so distant from people that approaching him seemed almost impossible. Then Tom Henderson entered his life. Having been involved in rescue work for years, Tom thought he was aware of the challenges he would face when taking this giant dog, now named Reggie, to his RV. But what Reggie was experiencing wasn't an ordinary fear. It was as if he was terrified of his own body. Instead of sniffing things, approaching people, or seeking trust, he retreated straight to the darkest corner of the living room. He pressed his massive body so tightly against a cold wall that he seemingly wanted to be completely erased from where he was. He barely touched the food placed in front of him, and his whole body would jump at the sound of a dropped spoon or a closing cabinet. Tom thought he had a long and exhausting rehabilitation process ahead of him. He believed it could take months just to get Reggie to look him in the eyes without fear. But the biggest change in his life would come in a moment unlike anything a professional dog trainer could ever plan. That afternoon, Tom's 5-year-old daughter Rosie came home from kindergarten. When she saw Reggie, she didn't run toward him, she didn't call him, she didn't offer the treat in her hand, and she didn't reach her little hands out to him. She left her pink backpack by the door, walked toward the dog, and sat on the floor, leaving a distance of a few feet between them. She didn't try to touch him, she didn't ask for anything, she just began to share the same silence with him. The sound of the wall clock echoed in the room. 10 minutes passed, then 15. For about 20 minutes, neither of them moved at all. Finally, a deep and trembling breath came out of Reggie's chest. He slowly laid his head onto his front paws. Then he turned his amber-colored eyes directly to Rosie for the first time. From that day on, a quiet but remarkable change began in the Henderson family's home. Wherever Rosie went in the house, the giant dog followed her a few feet behind. He didn't play games, he didn't wag his tail, and he didn't express his affection in a showy way, but he was always there. Over time, the two established a routine of their own. They learned to share the same space without talking much and without demanding anything from each other. The family had started to think that Reggie's hardest times were now behind him, until 3 weeks later, at 2:53 a.m., when that fragile peace inside the house was suddenly broken. It wasn't a bark that woke Tom up. It was a strange sound coming from the dark hallway, one he had never heard before, a deep, vibrating, and restless hum. When he got out of bed and went out to the hallway, he saw that Reggie was not in his usual corner. The giant dog was standing upright directly in front of Rosie's door. His 440-pound body was tense, all his attention locked on the room behind the door. It was as if he could understand what was inside without seeing it. When Tom reached for the doorknob, he immediately felt the hot air hitting his face. Rosie was lying curled up in her bed. Her sheets were soaked with sweat, and her face had turned pale white. Her body temperature had risen to a terrifying level, to 104 degrees, and her breathing was much faster and shallower than normal. The family immediately wrapped her in a blanket and took her to the hospital. What the doctors in the emergency room said was even more terrifying. Even a delay of a few more minutes could have caused the high fever to turn into a serious and life-threatening seizure. Hours later, when the family finally returned home, the hallway was dark, but there was a familiar silhouette in the darkness. Reggie was still in front of Rosie's door. He had hardly moved at all since the moment they left him. It was as if he had stood guard for hours to protect the little girl's room. Tom went over to him, knelt down, and slowly placed his hand on the giant dog's back. For the first time, Reggie did not pull back in fear. On the contrary, he took a deep breath, closed his. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.